The second the pan gets hot, there's a smell that takes me straight to Brazil's Northeast. It's not subtle. It's that deep, savory perfume of carne de sol hitting heat, waking up all at once, and then right at the end, manteiga de garrafa melting in and turning everything glossy and rich. If you've never tasted this combination, stay with me, because it's bold, comforting, and somehow still simple when you know what matters. Today I'm making carne de sol con mandioca the way I like it, straightforward, full of flavor, and with that just one more bite kind of satisfaction. And I want to be honest right up front, the secret that makes or breaks this dish isn't a fancy technique. It's getting the salt level right. Carne de sol is meant to be cured, and if you skip the desalting step or rush it, you'll end up fighting the flavor instead of enjoying it. I'll show you exactly how I do it so you keep the character of the meat without it tasting aggressive. While that's happening, we'll build the rest of the dish with a few quiet heroes. Onions, slowly turning golden, sweet and soft around the edges. That bottle butter, manteiga de garrafa, bringing a nutty, almost toasted aroma that you can't really fake. And mandioca, the perfect partner here, naturally sweet, creamy inside, and hearty enough to stand up to the meat. And let me save you from the most common frustration with this recipe, mandioca that turns into mush. You've seen it. 1 minute it looks fine, the next it's breaking apart and disappearing into the pot. There's a timing and a check I always do so it stays tender and sliceable, not watery or falling to pieces. If you enjoy traditional Brazilian food, or you're curious about regional flavors that feel like they've been cooked the same way for generations, you're in the right kitchen. Give this video a like if that first sizzling sound already has your attention. And tell me, what do you want to know about Brazil's food? What should I cook next? Now, let's start at the very beginning, with the carne de sol and the one step you really can't guess your way through. Before anything hits the pan, the real make or break happens in water. Carne de sol is meant to be bold, but it's not meant to be salty enough to fight you. So I start by cutting it into thick pieces, not too small, because we want it juicy. Then it goes into a bowl of cold water, right on the counter. If you've ever heard someone say, just rinse it, that's where dishes go wrong. I give it time. I change the water, let it sit, and I taste a tiny corner as I go. Not to make it bland, never that, but to land right in the sweet spot where you still feel the cure, but the meat is ready to take on butter and onion without overpowering everything else. While that's happening, I move to the mandioca, because cassava waits for no one. I peel it, cut it into big, confident chunks, and look for that tough inner core. If it's there, I slide it out, because that's what keeps a bite from turning stringy. Into a pot it goes with plenty of water and a good pinch of salt. Now here's the trick that saves it, I don't forget it on the stove. I want it tender, creamy inside, but still sliceable. When a fork goes in with almost no resistance and the edges are just starting to round, I turn the heat off. It keeps cooking a little in the hot water, so stopping early is how you hit perfect. Now, over on the stove, the pan is heating and the kitchen starts to smell like a promise. I slice onions into thin half-moons, and when they hit the fat, you hear that soft sizzle that tells you we're building the base of the whole dish. They go golden, sweet, almost jammy, and that's when I add manteiga de garrafa. The aroma changes instantly, nutty, rich, unmistakably Northeastern. If you're enjoying this kind of straight-to-the-point Brazilian comfort food, tap like so I know to keep bringing more. And tell me, have you tried carne de sol before, or is this your first time cooking it at home? Either way, make sure you're subscribed, because in the next step, we're going from prep to that unforgettable sear the moment the whole dish comes alive. Now, before the pan even gets hot, there's one step that decides whether this dish tastes like the Northeast, or like an accident, desalting the carne de sol. Because carne de sol isn't meant to be eaten straight from the package. It's preserved, intense, and if you skip this, the salt will bulldoze every other flavor on your plate. So here's how I do it without drama. I cut the pieces into thick strips, drop them into a bowl of cold water, and let time do the work. If you've got a couple hours, great. If you've got overnight in the fridge, even better. And I change the water a few times, because every change is like resetting the balance. The goal isn't to remove all the salt, carne de sol needs that personality. The goal is to make it pleasant, not punishing. If you're watching right now and you've ever bitten into salty meat that made you reach for water immediately, you already know what I'm talking about. Tell me in the comments, have you tried carne de sol before, or is this your first time cooking it? While the meat is getting where it needs to be, I move to the mandioca. This is the other make or break moment, and the most common mistake is overcooking it until it collapses into threads. I want it soft and creamy, yes, but still sliceable, the kind you can lift with a fork and it holds its shape. I peel it, cut it into manageable chunks, and I always remove that tough inner core if it's there. Then it goes into a pot with water and a good pinch of salt. Not too much, remember, we're already working with a cured meat. I bring it up to a gentle boil and then lower to a steady simmer, the kind that feels calm in the kitchen. You'll know it's ready when a knife slides in with almost no resistance, but the piece doesn't crack apart when you lift it. That moment is everything. Because once the mandioca is perfect, the rest becomes pure reward, and that's when the pan comes out, the onions hit the heat, and that first wave of aroma starts filling the room. If you like this kind of Brazilian comfort cooking, go ahead and subscribe, because what happens in the skillet next is where this dish becomes unforgettable. Now that the carne de sol is desalted just right, this is where the dish starts to smell like the Northeast. I heat a wide pan until it's properly hot, then add just a touch of oil, only enough to keep things from sticking. The first sound you want is that confident sizzle, not a timid hiss. I lay the beef in and I don't move it right away. This is one of those moments where patience actually tastes like something. Give it time to brown and build that crust that holds all the savory punch. While the meat is doing its thing, I slice onions into thick half-moons. Not paper thin, because I want them to turn golden and sweet without disappearing. When the carne de sol has color on one side, I flip it and let the second side catch up. You'll see the fat and the natural juices start to collect in the pan, and that's when I slide the onions in around the meat. They hit the heat and immediately soften, pulling up those browned bits from the bottom like they're unlocking the flavor. And now the signature move, manteiga de garrafa. I lower the heat just a little and drizzle it in, letting it melt and foam. The smell changes instantly, nutty, rich, almost toasted, like a memory. I spoon that butter over the meat and onions so everything gets coated, glossy and fragrant. If you've never cooked with it before, this is the moment that usually converts people. Quick question while this simmers: did you grow up eating carne de sol, or is this your first time trying it? If you're enjoying this kind of straightforward Brazilian cooking, a subtle like helps me know to keep bringing these classics, and you'll probably want to subscribe so you don't miss the next regional recipe. Now, let's talk mandioca, because this is where most people lose the dish. I've got my cassava already cooked until tender, but still holding its shape. Not falling apart, not waterlogged. I tested with a knife, it should slide in easily, but the piece should stay sliceable. In the next step, I'll show you exactly how I finish it so it stays creamy inside and doesn't turn into mash in the pan. Now that the carne de sol is at the right salt level, this is where the whole dish starts to smell like the Northeast. I heat a wide pan until it's properly hot, then add just a touch of oil, only enough to keep things from sticking. The meat goes in and I don't rush it. You'll hear that first strong sizzle, and that's your cue to let it sear and create color. If you keep moving it, you'll steam it. So I give it a minute, let it catch, then turn the pieces and build that golden, slightly crisp edge. When the surface looks brown and the kitchen already feels like a little fire stand, I lower the heat and bring in the manteiga de garrafa. It melts fast, turning glossy and fragrant, and suddenly everything becomes richer. This is the moment I love most, because the butter carries the flavor into every corner of the pan. I add sliced onions right into that buttery goodness, and as they soften, they pick up the browned bits from the bottom. They go from sharp to sweet, and you can see them turning translucent, then lightly golden. If the pan looks dry, a tiny splash of the mandioca cooking liquid loosens everything and makes a quick, natural sauce. While that's happening, let's talk about the mandioca, because this is where people accidentally turn it into mush. Mine is already cooked until tender, but not collapsing. I test with a knife, it should slide in, but the piece should still hold its shape when I lift it. Then I drain it gently and let it steam off for a minute so it doesn't get waterlogged. Now I bring the mandioca to the pan, not to fry it aggressively, but to coat it and warm it through. I tuck the pieces around the meat, spoon that buttery onion over the top, and let everything mingle for just a couple minutes. The cassava absorbs that flavor like it was made for it, creamy inside, still sliceable, and ready to serve. If you're enjoying how simple this feels for something so traditional, tap like so I know to keep bringing these Brazilian classics. And tell me, what part of Brazil are you most curious about cooking from? Northeast, South, Amazon, Minas? In a second, I'll show you how I plate this so it looks rustic, generous, and impossible to resist, and the final touch that makes it taste complete. And that's the moment I wait for. The pan goes quiet for a second, the carne de sol settles into that glossy coat of manteiga de garrafa, and the kitchen smells like a small street restaurant somewhere in the Northeast. I bring the mandioca back to the heat just long enough to warm it through, and you can see it, soft and creamy inside, but still holding its shape when you lift a piece. That's the line you don't want to cross. If it starts breaking apart, you've gone too far. But when it's right, it's almost like it melts as you chew, and the sweetness of the cassava balances the salty, beefy punch of the carne de sol. I like to plate it simply. Mandioca first, then the beef on top, and I spoon those golden onions and that buttery, savory pan fat over everything like it's a sauce, because honestly, it is. When I take the first bite, I always pause. There's a little crunch from the edges of the meat, then that tender center, and right after, the mandioca comes in smooth and comforting, like it's cushioning all that bold flavor. It's rustic, it's generous, and it doesn't need anything fancy to feel special. If you try this, pay attention to two things: the desalting point of the carne de sol and the exact moment you stop cooking the mandioca. Get those right, and the rest almost takes care of itself. And if you're watching and thinking, okay, but what do I serve with it? I'll tell you the truth, it's perfect as it is. But a simple fresh salad, or a little vinaigrette Brazilian style, can brighten the plate beautifully. If this recipe made you hungry, give the video a quick like, it helps more people find these Brazilian classics. And now I want to hear from you. What's one Brazilian dish you've always been curious about, or one flavor you want to understand better? Tell me in the comments, and I'll cook the next one with you. And if you enjoy this kind of clear, traditional, no complication Brazilian cooking, subscribe, because there's a lot more from Brazil's regions that deserves a spot on your table.